Hey friends, this is Ellen here to set up this week's episode. We don't normally do guest episodes back to back, but life's kind of weird right now, so here we are. Y'all are really going to love this one, just trust me. I wanted to get out in front of this episode with a thanks to our patrons on Patreon: April Kamik, Megan Clark, Vikram Baliga, Paul Chomo, Ashley Tucker, Jacob Jones, The Jungle Gym Queen, Brianna Feinberg, and Christina Sanders. Thank you all for making this show happen. I am here with our new friend, Tyus Williams. Say hello, Tyus.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on, Ellen. I really appreciate you inviting me onto your podcast.
No problem. I'm really excited for you to be here, and I'm super, super hyped about the animal that you are going to talk about because it is one of my favorites. But before we really dive into our animal for today, I'd like for you to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do in wildlife ecology and how you got into this field.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Tyus Williams. I'm a wildlife ecologist. I have a specialization niche in carnivore ecology. I'm fascinated by carnivores of all realms of differentiating vertebrate taxa. But most specifically, I focus on mammalogy and herpetology. I got into carnivores. Well, I want to backtrack. I've loved animals ever since I was a kid. I was always fascinated with just the unique and just majesty and just superior power and adaptive ability that many animals have across the world, and how unique, but yet how similar many of their traits are, and how they could utilize it to their advantage in differing ways. I think I've always been just captivated by their beauty and their prowess at the same time. And within that, I've always loved big cats. So I think that's where it extends from. I've always loved the concept of just like powerful carnivores and just how they have such a just inextricably important link to environmental health. I think that's kind of where it started for me. I went to the University of Georgia. I studied fisheries and wildlife science at Warren Ellis School of Forestry and Natural Resources. It's an incredible program. I learned way more than I expected to, and I retained a lot of the information. And I think towards my senior year, I decided that I wanted to do my senior thesis. And I remember I was like, I want to study a big cat, because that was always my dream. I always wanted to generate this project or come up with this idea to study a big cat, because it was always a childhood goal of mine. And I ended up collaborating with one of my PIs who's at Virginia Tech, and I did my thesis over jaguars. And that was I think my first big step into the world of carnivore ecology. But going through college, I did a lot of stuff with salamanders. I did some stuff with sea turtles, did some stuff with rattlesnake tracking, alligator mark and recapture. So I've had a really good hand of very diverse experiences that have led me to get to where I am today. But I hope to continue my career in carnivore research.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you get into studying carnivores, there is so much at play, not only their own strength, but also the sort of strategies that they need to use to outsmart their prey. So you get into some really, really interesting stuff when you look at carnivores specifically. So I'm really excited to hear about the insight that you're bringing to us today, because we're talking about one of my favorite animals of all time. And I was really excited that you decided to share your knowledge on this animal with us, because like I said, it's one of my favorites, but I was so apprehensive to talk about it myself because I am not an expert, and I really wanted to make sure that we were able to do justice for this animal. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. So why don't you introduce us to your animal a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So we're breaking down the tiger, which is also one of my favorite animal in the world as well. So we share that passion together. Yes. Tigers, just trying to think where to start off. Their scientific name is Pantherus tigris. They are a true big cat. So one of the ways that we distinguish big cats, a lot of people think big cats are a factor or metric of size, but it actually has to relate to their genus. Any cat within the genus of Pantherus is technically a true big cat. Cougars are not true big cats. They're recognized as big cats, but their scientific name is Puma conclure. They're more closely related to cheetahs than they actually are the rest of the big cats. Big cats are lions, tigers, leopards, jaguars, and snow leopards. I think I got them all. Those are all big cats. They all have a phylogenetic lineage that relates back to a common ancestor 40 million years ago, as how old the lineage of felids are. And so tigers, more specifically, are the biggest species of big cat. I think that's one of the reasons why we're so enamored with them. Males can grow to be up to 400 to 500 pounds. They range about 10 to 13 feet long. Females are 220 to 350. There's some difference in sexual dimorphism with a lot of big cats. One of the largest recorded historical tigers, I think, was a Siberian tiger. It was estimated to be around 700 to 850 pounds, which I can't even just imagine in my head, like how big that is. Like, that's like, it's terrifyingly like enthralling, it's like 850 pounds. And this isn't 850 pounds of just like weight. This is 850 pounds of pure muscle.
It's a powerhouse.
it is literally imagine a train just compacted into just one body. And this animal can also move at bursts of speed of up to like 30 to 40 miles per hour in burst speeds. This is 50 Mike Tysons packed into one animal.
He's a fluffy freight train.
Yeah, it's a fluffy freight train. Like when you get smacked by something that's that big, it not to mention the fact that they have retractable claws, and their claws, I think alone, if you measure like them, I think they're at least like 1.5 inches or 2 inches in length or something like that. Like that's terrifying. So like it's going to do some severe damage. Some incredible facts about tigers, and with such a tremendous and gargantuan stature, that requires an extraordinary supplemented form of diet. You have to be able to sustain that in order to grow so long. Protein is incredibly important for them. They are hypercarnivores. All their diet consists entirely of meat, as you can imagine. But tigers can eat up to 30 to 60 pounds in a sitting. They can eat up to 30, 60 pounds of meat in a day when they eat, when they choose to. And they might not go on and eat on for like maybe like 3 to 4 days or like a week later. And they eat in an intermittent way. So like they'll eat a little bit and then they'll stop and then like they'll eat more. But generally in the whole setting, they can eat up to 30, 60 pounds of like meat. Like that's like the concept of just like that amount of like protein and nutrients. It just goes to show you like how important their prey resources and allocation are for them. Like if you have to eat 30 to 60 pounds of meat, that means you have to be a big animal and you have to be able to sustain those nutrients for your vital growth. Tigers are located generally throughout Asia and Far East Russia. So I generally just like to say Eurasia, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Malaysia, Sumatra. We're probably all familiar with many of those iconic tigers. The Siberian tiger, or the Amur tiger, as like people like to refer to it as, that's one of the largest species. These cats, what makes tigers so incredible and what makes them such powerful animals is because they are so versatile and adaptive to different types of terrains. We're talking about going from the hot, steamy tropics of a mangrove swamp environment of like Bangladesh, for example, to the birch woodland forests of Far East Russia that can drop to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Like that, like to be able to move between a range like that. And I'm not saying that that's one tiger moving between a range, but I'm saying like their distribution to be that extensive and that diverse just goes to show you the breadth and sheer adaptability of this animal.
That's been a good primer on tigers. So now we know what tigers are. But so let's start off with the rating of effectiveness, which if this is your first time listening to this show, effectiveness we define as physical adaptations that let an animal do a really good job of the things that it's doing. So what would you rate the tiger out of 10 for effectiveness?
I would say out of effectiveness, I would give it a 10, like a 10 out of 10.
It's got to be,
right?
It
really is the best at what it does. Like, top three best big cats easily I would rank as, honestly, if I really had to put it, I would say jaguars, tigers, and leopards. But tigers also get a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, they're not playing games. No one's going to step to a tiger.
Yeah, exactly. Like, have you ever watched the video it was some, I want to say they were in India. They could have been in Bangladesh. It was hard for me to tell because their backs were facing the video. But there were some native men that were riding elephants through the forest. And you have to remember how big elephants are too.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
These these are animals that get up to what I think like 10,000 plus pounds or something like that. And more like 10, 15,000 pounds. And you see this movement in like the reeds off in the distance, and then you realize like something is about to go down, like this is not going to be good, and then a tiger just bursts out of the reeds, jumps into the air, completely scales the height of the elephant, and just messes this guy up riding the back of this elephant. And I was just like, you're not even safe on elephants, my God. Is no one safe from their sheer power? I was like, oh my gosh. I remember my mouth was just agape. I was just like, egad. I was like, oh my Lord.
And to get that kind of air while you're like moving that amount of like size, like to be a cat that big and to be able to still clear that much vertical distance, like
Yes.
that is a lot of like leg muscle. Like these tigers are not skipping leg day. You know that they're like clearing some distance.
Yeah, it is the perfection of athleticism. I really think in every single way. I think people think like, what is one of the most athletic animals in the world? I would put tigers down, hands down, every single time and bet my money on it that they would win. They really are at the top of their game.
Yeah.
Some really other cool things about tigers. One of the things that we're all familiar with is their camouflage. I don't know if you knew this, Ellen, but they're the only big cat that have stripes. Like they're the only one that have stripes.
Oh yeah, now that I'm thinking of it, I don't know why that was like surprising to me.
And I'm trying to think in terms of the back of my head, because there's over 40 species of wildcats. And so there's a lot, there's a good handful. I'm trying to remember in the back of my head, like, are there any other species of cats that have like actual stripes? And I can't think of one that does in the same way that a tiger does. I can't remember if they quantify stripes as like, if it connects over their body or if it's just like lines on both sides. But what I do know is that they're the only true striped cat, and it's like really cool to think that like you start to think about all the animals like jaguars, leopards, and cheetahs, and you're going through your head and you're like, wait, hold on a minute. You're like, yeah, they are. They're the only ones that have like really distinct lines throughout their entire body. Everybody's kind of got like marbled and spotted pelage. When you think about like clouded leopards or cheetahs or jaguars, with their rosettes and stuff. So their camouflage is really unique to them. We refer to this form of camouflage as disruptive coloration. So you have to imagine that a tiger is moving through already a very dark green, lush forested area. And those black stripes really helps as it's moving through vegetation with all of that striated patterns. It breaks the outline of their body. So a prey item isn't really getting a full glimpse of picture of like how big it is, first of all, but also like where exactly it is too. It's hard for some animals because eyesight is different for various species to get a really good like form of clarity of like, is this a tiger like, 5 feet in front of me, or is this something else? Like, I can't tell because like, off in the distance, like their outline's disrupted. So they just looks like a blur and swirl of black stripes and some orange coloration. But here's the really interesting thing, Ellen, about tigers. It's often overlooked for many people, but you look at a tiger's coat, this sunburst red, beautiful orange fur that they have. And reddish orange coloration is actually, it's not unique. It's quite common for mammals. We refer to this as pheomelanin, like reddish yellow coloration that can be produced in the skin or hair follicles. You might know that eumelanin refers to like kind of more dark brown and black coloration that can also be produced in hair and skin. Tigers produce reddish orange hair, but what's really cool about that is that they produce reddish orange hair because their prey items, which majority of their prey items are ungulates. They usually eat a lot of hoofed animals, sandbar deer or boar. Sometimes they eat guar if they get lucky. I don't know if you know what a guar is. It's kind of like imagine like an Asian water buffalo. That's how the best way I would describe it. Like they're significantly larger.
Yeah, that's a big boy, huh?
In relation to the guar and all these prey items that they do predate upon. These are all ungulates. So the interesting thing about tigers being reddish orange is that most mammals, specifically non-human mammals, they're dichromates. So they have a hard time distinguishing between orange in green coloration. So their prey items actually can't see them when it comes to like their color. They look like greenish,
Oh
a drab
yeah.
greenish coloration. So it's so like that is so incredible when you think about the evolutionary adaptation that came into this tiger having a specific coloration that was, you I think, adaptive for it, because the prey items that they feed upon can't see it. They have a hard time seeing orange and green. So what's really cool is that, we refer to these animals, they're dichromates. So they have two color receptors. Humans are, we're trichromates. So we have three. We can see orange, we can see green really clearly. We can see hues of blue, all that stuff. And so what's really cool is it just goes to show you that tigers were reddish orange because there was no need for this animal to produce the green coloration. There's no such thing as a green mammal.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a green mammal. When you think about it, there's not a single animal that's a mammal that produces green hair or has green coloration, because when you think about the differing factors in adaptive coloration and the significance of it, it makes more sense for a tiger to be orange when their prey items can't see it in the first place. That would be an extraordinary amount of evolutionary energy invested into produce green hair when they can't see it in the first place. So it doesn't make sense for them to be the same color, a deep emerald jade green, as their environment, when the boar and deer can't even recognize it. So it's like, it's really cool. You think like, oh, this deer can probably see that tiger, and it's like, nope, like probably not. Like, and they're probably going to get eaten, So it's really cool. And also just to point out too, not all mammals are dichromates, mainly just ungulates specifically. Marsupials are mammals. They're metatherians more specifically. Marsupials are trichromates, and then you have birds and fish, which are tetrachromates. So they can see, like, they have 4 color receptors. It's incredible the spectrum that they can see in. And so that's like one of the most mind-blowing, I think, characteristics to me, is that like they literally in a way are invisible, and not to mention that they already have the stripes. So it's like, it is just this compounded adaptive quality that they have to really ensure that they can acquire their prey efficiently.
Yeah, because I feel like it's easy when you're a human to think, oh my gosh, he's bright orange. Yeah, that's really easy to see among the... Like, you might think like, oh, that camouflage probably isn't helping because the bright orange really contrasts against the green. But, I mean, if you're a deer, then it's all brown to you, right? Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it doesn't matter. And that's why it's so cool. Like, science, just our ability to just, like, infer upon a deeper understanding, like in a really intricate way, to see exactly why the morphology or the physical features of an animal is exactly the way it is for a precise reason. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're asking me, like, giving a brief intro of my background. I think that's one of the reasons why I think I also just got into just ecology and studying carnivores. I mean, they're such incredible, unique animals that like have such an important impact on our environment, whether it comes to trophic cascades or herbivore ungulate population control. And so, just knowing information like that just gives you a more deeper appreciation for just their awesomeness. But yeah, so just trying to think what else I can tell you about tigers. I can talk about their sheer power. We'll talk about some like their physical aspects too. So, tigers, they're known for their physical power. They can hit up bursts of 30 to 40 miles per hour. But they're not known for chasing. They don't chase like cheetahs do. They don't chase for long periods of time. Unfortunately, tigers actually have really bad stamina. They have to use quick bursts of energy and speed to subdue their prey in a short amount of time. Otherwise, they get gassed and they get exhausted really quickly. You have to imagine when you're 500 pounds. There's a lot of weight that you're carrying. You're pretty much almost pure muscle. While you might think that helps with endurance, for them in this case, it helps with the power and them being able to subdue their prey really quickly. But in the case of chase, they're not that great at it actually. So they have to get to them really quickly over time. Tigers, many wildcats, can have between 1 to 5 cubs. Not a lot of people know that actually. Generally on average, females generally produce 2 to 3. It's just probably, I think, a reproductive strategy that they can have 1 to 5 or 1 to 4, just because, because just in case there's the chance of you losing an extra cub, like they have the ability to produce more, and they're not confined to a specific litter count. The females stay with the mothers longer, and the males leave. I think around, I want to say around 18 months, the males are kind of weaned from the mother. Females stay longer just because I was reading in terms of reproductive strategies. Females stay longer with their mothers because they're more valuable. It's a greater investment to have females in a population than males, and it's really cool to think about that, the difference in how they nurture their young. The males will go off and they'll be ready to start hunting 18 to 24 months, and the females will hang out a little bit longer with their mothers until they're ready. But yeah, those are kind of just the more bottom line facts of tigers and their unique ecology and their adaptive abilities and stuff like that. Tigers, they're so rare. To see one is I think a once in a lifetime chance in itself too, because they really are incredibly elusive. People have this understanding, India, because there are tigers over many parts of India, that people think there are tigers everywhere. The tigers are taking all their cattle, and people are getting eaten, and it's it doesn't really happen. The historical circumstances of a man eater is really rare. Maybe every 15 to 20 years, somebody maybe gets eaten by a tiger, and that's just a freak accident in itself too. They rarely predate on cattle, and even if they do, that's a rare circumstance as well.
Sure, but it's something that stands out, right? So it's something that you're going to notice. And so even if it only happens one time, everyone's talking about it, and all of a sudden it seems like it's normal.
Yeah. It spreads like wildfire. Yeah, that's the thing about if you're a farmer and you have this cattle that's just got eaten by a tiger, that's going to spread like wildfire. And everybody's going to start freaking out because they think there's oh, is there one, or is there two, or are there 15 in the area, and so. And unfortunately, most of the time, that ends up with a much more unfortunate circumstance for the tiger's fate when these situations happen.
Maybe this is an opportunity for some myth busting, because this is something that I heard probably when I was a child. Is it a real thing where people that live in areas with tigers will wear a mask on the back of their heads so that the tiger will be thrown off? Is that a real thing, or is that totally made up?
I've never heard that.
You've never heard that?
Never heard that. Wow, that's weird. What's funny is that it sounds kind of like a mythos, but at the same time, it almost kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it doesn't. Let's run a hypothetical for an example. If you were in a forest, you and I were in a forest, and first off, too, it is true, actually, Ellen, that you never want to face your back towards a wildcat, because it exposes your most vulnerable side of your body, and that's what they want to take advantage of. So it does cue an instinctual predatory response. That's why people say you should never run from a cougar or a mountain lion if you come across one, because you're just stimulating that fight or flight response for the predator to engage its predatory instincts.
Sure.
And so for me, it's I'm trying to rationalize that. I think maybe what people are saying is that by simulating this idea, or that you're somehow steering, or you're making eye contact, you're reducing your chance of being attacked from behind. I think that's what the idea is, but I can't imagine that would change anything. If you were to stand in front of a tiger and a tiger was looking at you, the tiger is that's not gonna reduce the chances of a tiger potentially attacking you. And wildcats, in generally, for the most part, are very shy. So they really want nothing to do with us. But that's really interesting. Oh my gosh, I have to look more into that, because I think I understand the idea of that, but I want to say that it's not probably wouldn't change as much as you think it would.
Right.
If a tiger's gonna attack you, it's going to attack you. It's kind of the same circumstance. Well, because you think about the circumstances also of mountain lions and cougars. Mountain lions want nothing to do with you, but if you come around a bend and you startle a mountain lion and you're facing it and you're looking at it, And the mountain lion still decides, like, all right, cool, like we going in, like we're gonna throw down. Like, guess what? Like you're gonna like it's gonna attack you, like, you know. So like having a mask on the back of your face, I can't imagine really like reduces those odds any more than whether you're facing it, you know.
Right. They're like, okay, that's fine. I'm still 3 times your size.
Like, cool. Yeah, it's like I'm still 3 times your size, like, you know. So it's like you know, we can try, but you know. So I've never. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I've never heard of that.
Hey, this is post-recording Ellen here with a follow-up to this conversation. So I wasn't making it up. In the Sundarbans mangrove forest, which is along the border between India and Bangladesh, there is a high population of Bengal tigers, and this local population of tigers is particularly aggressive. So this led to a higher rate of attacks on humans by tigers, prompting the Indian Forestry Service to issue painted face masks to 2,500 people who were permitted into this dangerous reserve area in 1986. They proved effective for 3 years when people wearing the masks were not attacked by tigers, but eventually the tigers figured out that the masks were a trick and the attacks resumed. And this information comes from National Geographic from an article in October of 2016 by Carl Safina and Erica Sereno. Anyway, back to the episode. They're pretty much perfect. So you mentioned earlier, like the sort of range that they have in Asia, that they're found, you know, way high up north in like the like Siberian area, and then they're found in the Himalayas, and then they're found in more tropical areas like in India. Obviously, like we've all heard of these different types of tigers, right? Like Siberian tigers, Bengal tigers, Sumatran tigers, stuff like that. You see a lot of physical differences between them. So sometimes you can even look at one and you know, one might be a lot more streamlined and have shorter hair.
Yeah,
and
sure.
To start off with, are they all the same species?
I can't give you an exact number off the top of my head how many subspecies there are. There are multiple subspecies. So, for example, the Bengal tiger, generally when people say tigers, they're thinking of Pantherus tigris, which is generally your classic iconic Bengal tiger. So you have like populations in Bangladesh. You have Indian tigers that also have their own population. You have Siberian tigers. You have tigers in India, and then you have tigers in Myanmar, which is a neighboring country next to it, because the Hukwang Valley Tiger Reserve, it is, if I'm correct, the largest tiger reserve in the world. If I'm correct, half of the Hukwang Valley Tiger Reserve encompasses 25 reserves. That would be the equivalent over in India. Like, that's how big the reserve is. Wow. Like, it's massive. So it's like, it's the largest tiger reserve in the world, if I'm correct. Thanks to Alan Rabinowitz's conservation efforts actually helped spur that. So they have their own unique population. So you have to imagine all these different corridors in vicarious, geological or geographical barriers between these populations allow for them to be recognized as their own species. But tigers in general recognized, or they're endangered, critically endangered.
Okay. Let's talk about ingenuity. So ingenuity, if this is your first time, we define as behavioral adaptations that let an animal kind of have an edge over others or do a better job of what it's trying to do, or like solving problems that it encounters on a daily basis. So what would you give the tiger for ingenuity?
I would give a tiger for ingenuity. I would also have to say I would give it a 10.
Okay.
You think about the behavioral dynamics of predation. Tigers can take down animals that are 5 times their size. So tigers get up to 500, 550 pounds. Generally, a lot of the average males. Guar can weigh up to 2,000 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Like, in one of the unique hunting strategies for tigers, there's really 2 ways that many wildcats mainly take down their prey or subdue them. They can crush the cervical vertebrae, so they can go for the back of the neck, which is common for a lot of wildcats. Or if they're bigger, they will crush the windpipe. So they'll go for the jugular underneath. It's either they pounce on top, they break their neck, or they go underneath and they basically slash their jugular, they bleed out, and they crush their windpipe. Felids in predatory cats really are. They're very cunning and they're very smart. Like, it's not so much just the tiger on the individual level. It's the evolutionary history of where like felids come from. They are very meticulous animals. One of the things about wildcats that people have to understand is that wildcats are very particular about where they choose to move throughout a terrain, the corridors, the pathways. Their elusiveness and cryptic behavior it's inherent to their nature, because they they don't want to be seen. It's important for their survival. Being seen means that you're not eating, and so tigers, they're the way they move throughout their territory, or at least their hunting range specifically, they can move from around 1 to 30 miles just looking for prey items. But they're very cautious and very, very conscious about each step that they take. Tigers have also been known, just in terms of movement patterns, have been known to move for 125 to 170 miles at a time. And it's like they're constantly moving. They have large home ranges, which is influenced by their size. And so that's nothing but just an outstanding form of ingenuity and I think effectiveness when it comes to their behavior. They just have a predilection for just being very meticulous animals, and because of that, it's allowed them to just be very successful in their environment. They don't take risks unless they are calculated and beneficial to them.
So when they are like waiting for their prey, because a lot, how they'll kind of like stalk, but they'll kind of lie in wait for the prey. Yeah. Do they typically do that like down on the ground, like down low to the ground? Do they use trees? Like, how are they getting that sort of leg up?
So, you have to imagine, tigers are really big animals. I'm sure if they wanted to, they could climb a tree. It's hard for me to imagine, though, when I'm thinking about the environments that tigers live in, like, you think about Bangladesh, like mangrove swamp type environments, like India, you have you have urban sprawl, you have scattered farmlands, congregated communities, all these types of things. Like, it's hard for me to also imagine that there's a tree really large enough for them to climb to in some ways. This are 500 pounds. So I just imagine that they would expend more energy that would actually be, that would benefit them in the end, rather than just using the typical, this stealthy stalk and pouncing approach. So generally what tigers do, and lions also use this method as well, they use brush and vegetation to their advantage. So they'll hide in the reeds. They'll use as much as they can. Even if there's little pieces of it, they'll try to hide behind it, get really low to the ground, reduce their presence, wait for the wary cattle or boar in this case to become oblivious to their surroundings, and then they take advantage of that, either from using the top-down kill method or going for them underneath the neck.
Sure. Yeah. I would imagine they would just like not even bother with going up a tree. They're like, I got it either way. They don't exactly need to drop down from the sky. They're fine.
Exactly. I mean, and if they chose to do that too, then that's just like overkill, It's like just 500 pounds of pure muscle just landing on top of you. It's like they don't even have to bite the animal at that point. They probably would just break the neck just by landing on top of it, So tigers aren't really climbers. They're great swimmers though. They're incredible swimmers.
Oh yeah, that's really cool to see too.
Yeah, they're incredible swimmers. Gladly will move through water in all sorts of, like I said, the marshy mangrove environments. They gladly swim through those environments to get to different sides and move throughout their terrain.
They almost seem like they like it. Like they seem like they enjoy getting in water.
Yeah, I think they do. It's weird because our general domestic cat, it is one of the most well-known things about domestic cats, that they're terrified of water. They hate being in the water. I know that there are the cases that there are cats that do like being in water in some circumstances, but I think they do. But I think it's not so much like it's more of like maybe a cognitive, like I love being in the water, like I'm gonna play around, and maybe they do. I mean, like I certainly definitely don't want to reduce the vastness and breadth of the cognition of a wildcat, because they really are sentient and they're conscious and they're incredibly intelligent animals. They are playful, and I'm sure at a young age, like they do really grow accustomed to enjoying being in the water. And I just think it's a part of their life. So I think it's something that they just grow. It just becomes secondhand nature for them to just constantly use it all the time. But I think they do too. I think they do like it also.
Yeah. So you mentioned them being playful. So last thing I wanted to touch on before we move out of ingenuity is like their social behavior. So I know that they tend to be solitary, like in adulthood at least, right?
Yeah.
So what other kind of like social behaviors do they have to like communicate with each other?
Sure. So, we see this throughout a lot of cat communities. We only understand, technically, the only social cats are really cheetahs and lions. Lions have actual prides. They're the only ones that have kind of like these nomadic clusters of these packs that will move throughout like, the Serengeti or these African savannas together. And they have like these very tight knit established like communities. Cheetahs in many circumstances, the males, if they're in the same, if they're coming from the same mother, the males will stick together for a period of time as they're moving throughout Africa. And it's really cool. So you'll see like 3 male cheetahs and they're all brothers and they'll kind of like hang out together before they go off on their own and, try to start their own family. The tigers are a little bit different. They're more solitary. They're a little bit more, reclusive in some ways. But what's really cool, though, is, they communicate. All cats communicate by urine spray. They communicate through scat, scratching throughout their terrain. Urine spraying is like one of the most important, I think, effective forms of communication and signaling. It not only establishes territory, but it also communicates too between males and females when the mating period is going on and females are in estrus, so they're in heat, and they're also signaling that they are looking for a partner and they're fertile and they have the ability to mate. What's cool about females though is I mentioned how females invest a little bit more energy into the youngs that are female cubs. What's cool is that when females disperse from their mothers, the daughters will establish themselves near their mothers. And so what's cool is that if you look on a map, you'll have like this kind of cluster of females that literally kind of live near each other. And that's very similar to what lionesses do as well. It's really cool. So they are solitary animals, but they do have some social behaviors as well in some ways. So it's actually really cool because the female tigers have a very similar kind of like distribution in how they neighbor near each other, like female lions do.
At our zoo, at Jacksonville Zoo. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, by the way.
Okay.
Which is not too far from Georgia. It's probably about an hour south of Georgia. But so at Jacksonville Zoo, we have this just breathtaking tiger exhibit. I mean, it is enormous, and it has these like elevated.
I gotta go.
It's extremely impressive. And so it even has these elevated walkways where the tigers can walk over like the pathways. Nice. So like you could be walking like through the exhibit, and you look up, and there's a tiger right over your head.
Right, yeah, okay, that's what I was thinking. Like, it walks, like, over you, like the platform.
Yeah,
okay.
It's extremely cool. So, like, part of the exhibit, like, the viewing area is in this sort of indoor area where you have glass on either side, and either side of it leads to, like, a different part of the exhibit, so you can see tigers on either side. But a lot of the exhibit is just these chain link fences where you can get, like, surprisingly close to it. You can get, like, a few feet away from the chain link fence. And the risk of that is that sometimes you can get sprayed.
Yeah, and I know that tiger urine is generally what they're using to mark, but I often wonder sometimes, too, I was thinking in my head if, like, there's a difference in the chemical properties in concentration of different, like, pheromones when they're marking territory and when they're actually urinating. I wonder that sometimes. I imagine that it's all the same, but it would be cool, I think, to like look into that further. I don't know off the top of my head. It just popped into my head. I was like, I wonder if like scent spraying, like, is what people refer to it as, does have a different pheromone, like, chemical property than just regular urine that they hold inside their body.
Yeah, because like the delivery mechanism is a little bit different too, right? Like instead of them just like squatting and peeing, they're like it's a different
behavior. Like it's the mechanism of how they do it too. So I imagine that there is a difference between probably more of the molecular structure between the two. Obviously, the major component and base structure of it is like urine, and it's urea. I do wonder. I'd have to look into a paper. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not like a molecular ecologist, so I don't look really. I'm not really well adept in understanding stuff like that. But I imagine in my head that there would have to be. I would imagine that if a female is in heat and she is marking territory, if she is alerting a male that she is looking for a mate, or she's reproductively available, that the urine that she's using probably contains some form of like chromium gonadotropin, which is very similar to like when women are pregnant, they produce human chromium gonadotropin, or HCG, which is what they produce in their urine, which is actually when women test for pregnancy, like that's the chemical marker that signals whether you're pregnant or not. So I imagine that for the female tigers, there has to be something similar to that that lets them know, like, yes, I'm ovulating, like I'm reproductively fertile, rather than just regular urine.
Yeah, like she wants to get that message out there. So the last category that we have is pretty self-explanatory, and this is aesthetics. And I have a feeling I know what you're going to say for aesthetics, but I wanted to open the floor to you for what you would give them out of 10 for aesthetics.
0.
What? Get out.
Just joking.
You're
10.
banned.
10 out of 10.
It doesn't get better than a good tiger,
really
does it?
Doesn't, And yeah, it really doesn't. Like, I mean, they're like red, dude. I mean, like
they look like they're like made of fire.
Yeah, they really like look like they were handcrafted by like Zeus himself. It's like, I think that's like, I think one of the best ways I think you describe it. Like the gods just all came together in this collaborative, like artistic project, and they were just like, let's make the most beautiful and most majestic animal on the planet. And then they were like, okay, let's make it a tiger. And then they were like, all right, dope. And then they dropped it on planet Earth.
Agreed. I wonder what it is about humans that, we see a tiger, so we see an apex predator that is built to be able to essentially immediately kill us whenever it wants. Like our response to seeing it should be like abject horror and fear, but instead we look at one and we're just mesmerized by, we're like, wow, it's so beautiful. Like, I wonder what that is about humans that makes us think that they're so beautiful instead of being like terrified by them.
Well, I think I can answer that to some degree. I think it extends from a lot of things. It's a multifaceted form of perception that we're experiencing when we look at something that's so gorgeous like tigers. I think in part it extends from anthropomorphism and personification. We look at these features of this animal and we can kind of like relate to them. Cats don't look like us. We share chromosomes with them, but we can relate to that in terms of like, one is in part to the fact that we have a very direct relationship with domestication of dogs and cats historically. You go all the way back to the Fertile Crescent. You think about our domestication of dogs and then in the future our domestication of cats. Even though we've never really domesticated cats have always been kind of really autonomous. We've always been able to relate to cats, I think, historically as a species. And as we grew as a civilization, our consciousness became more elaborate. It became more fluid. It became more not only just the encapsulation of Earth's beauty in finite details, but I mean, human consciousness itself is sublime. It really is. You have to think about the history. I mean, we've been around for 2.5 million years, from Homo habilis to Homo erectus or vice versa. I can't remember which one came first. Building fire and being enthralled by fire, fire, that carnal fascination with fire is still a part of us. It never left us. And so I think that's where it partly extends from. I think it's our fascination, not only with just the cat itself, but I really think humans evolved in a way to appreciate this planet. It's incredible sometimes when you think about it, like how high our consciousness is. Like it's adaptive for us as a species, but yet we have the ability to like look at plants and look at animals and go like, wow, this is incredibly gorgeous. And I really think it's beneficial probably to us in the mental level.
Yeah, I think that's why imagery is so powerful when it comes to educating like people about wildlife or getting people interested in wildlife, is because like seeing them really gets you really invested in them. It makes you think, oh my gosh, like the world is so beautiful. There's so many like gorgeous things out there. And so, you watch things like BBC's like Planet Earth and Life and stuff like that just give you these really incredible visuals of what the animals are like out there. And like that's what gets people interested, and like that's what gets people to be like, yes, I want to learn more about wildlife and I want to work with wildlife, and like this is what I want my life to be. So yeah, I think a tiger is a really good way to just like get people hooked in. This is one of those like charismatic megafauna, like that people just are so obsessed, like the people like me, for example, that will like get really obsessed with it and then think, wow, this animal's really beautiful. I wonder what other animals are really beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and just learn about animals forever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it certainly definitely, stands as a testament too, because it's like, tigers certainly are. They're just such admirable animals. They just the versatility of their color to their unique features, their variation in size. also it's like it's one of those things too. It's like we really do look at tigers and we're like, oh, like they're so cute and they're so gorgeous. But like if you stumbled across a tiger in the wild, like I think you would immediately trigger like a flight or fight response. So it's like I think it's purely because they're confined and we know that we're safe that I think we have the ability to appreciate them from a distance. Because I can tell you, I love tigers, but if I came across a tiger in the middle of a jungle, I would probably like poop myself.
Yeah, I think that is true because I was at this wildlife sanctuary nearby not too long ago where they have lions, and I was standing there, and I have never had any sort of fear response to any lion or any big cat or anything. I've been to many zoos, never had never felt nervous or anything around them, but this lion. It was like right before they were going to do the feedings. So the lions were starting to get a little bit like on edge. They were starting to pace a little bit and they were starting to get a little testy. And so I was standing there and I looked over at this one lion who was lying on the ground. It was a female, it was a lioness, and she was laying on the ground. She looked dead at me. She stood up and ran like directly towards me and like rushed the fence, and she didn't do anything, right? Like she just rushed towards the fence and that was it. And she was kind of like making that like rumbling, growling sound that lions make.
Yeah.
And just that act of her like growling and running like in my direction, I about had a panic attack. That was like, It was an extremely different emotion than from what I usually get from looking at a lion. So that I think you're right that like safety does give us a different appreciation than like when you're in the moment and you're like, oh, there's actual risk involved.
I remember when I agree with you completely. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like that experience pretty much says everything. Because I had literally a very similar experience. When I was doing research over in Belize, when I was studying jaguars, we went to the Belize Zoo, which is an incredible zoo. If you ever have the chance to go and visit, like please do. It's incredible. They only have native species, and they build their habitat naturally too. So what's really cool is that like they literally put the infrastructure. They surround it around like natural forest. So it's like they don't even really like try to manipulate the terrain. They just like keep it completely natural and they build their enclosures surrounding it. Sure. And that's where they keep their animals in. So they keep it as pure and like innate to the habitat of the animals.
And just drop a fence around what was already there.
essentially, no, but seriously, because like I was walking around the Belize Zoo. Do you know what a paca is? Like, or an agouti? Have you ever heard of like a paca or an agouti? Yeah. Like an agouti, like I think the names interchange between the two. Actually, I think they're two different animals. And I remember I was walking around the zoo, and this paca like runs right past me, and I was like looking at one of my people I was working with, and I was like, should we tell somebody that one of their pacas are loose? And she was like, no, like that's a wild paca. Like they just like run throughout here. And I was like, holy cow, like this place is like completely wild, And it was this little paca was just like running throughout the sanctuary. And it was because they built the sanctuary to be wild. And they just had their enclosures, fit to the specifications of their animal so they could be comfortable. But anyways, I remember I was looking at a jaguar while I was walking up to its enclosure, and the jaguar was probably a juvenile. He had to be like no more than 2-3 years old, 3-4, something along that line. He wasn't fully grown, maybe 1 or 2 years of age. And I remember just like I was looking at him, and he was just like looking at me. And he was kind of pacing back and forth. And I remember I kind of like crouched down because I just kind of like wanted to like look at him at eye level. And he started like growling, but it was like that low rumble where it wasn't like a full like roar. And I remember
you can feel that in your chest.
I remember I could feel it. Yeah, I could feel it just reverberate off my body. And I could feel just like my anxiety just start climbing. And I remember just thinking to myself, I was like, this is what sheer power looks like.
That's your instincts taking over. Your instincts are like, you gotta go.
Yeah, no, like that's like fear it's primordial almost in itself. It's like it never leaves you, And so I was just like, yeah, it's like there's nothing more primitive than our fear of death. And I remember just my body just being like, oh boy, like this animal is much smaller than me, and yet my body is still reacting to it as if it's a potential danger, And
Yeah.
so it says everything.
But it's like a respectful fear, right? You're like,
It really is.
I'm afraid
It
of
is.
you, but also you're pretty much the bossest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, exactly. It's cool. I think there's a duplicity of, I think, like the fear and then like the admiration of, like, I think the grace and the sheer strength that they have,
We're good, but from way over there,
Exactly.
over there, we are good.
Yeah. I'll watch you from behind here. Where I'm safe.
Exactly. So I feel like that's been a pretty comprehensive overview of not only the tiger, but our very strong feelings about the tiger. I've had a lot of fun fangirling over tigers with you. So what have you been up to? Like, what kind of projects are you involved with right now that you think that people should know about? Or like, where can people follow along with what you're doing, like online or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. So, right now at the moment, I'm going through the ins and outs, the grueling process that is, grad school. I'm trying to go into grad school and hopefully get my PhD, doing all that stuff. I really love doing research. So that's like really kind of like a full-time job right now at the moment. But things kind of are a little tedious right now with the COVID-19 outbreak. So it's like everybody's kind of on a bit of a lockdown. There's a hiatus. Schools are kind of shut down. Classes are online. So it's kind of like there's really not much for me to do really at this point right now. I do work for the Cougar Network. They are a nonprofit organization doing an ongoing long-term research project on the movement patterns of mountain lions throughout North America, and even some parts of Canada where they get confirmed. And that's pretty much what I also do. I work pretty much for that organization. I manage their database and I collect information from online and I put it input into the digital database. And I handle like newsletters and like let people know like, hey, we confirmed the mountain lion in this area. And then, at the end of the day, we'll probably generate this collaborative, paper that we'll all formulate into and then use it for publication for public knowledge, and then help inform like conservation and management decisions. So it's really cool to be a part of that, like as be able to contribute to that kind of form of knowledge. And so that's really what I do right now. Where people can get to know me or get to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at Science with Tyus. You can also find me on Instagram at Science with Tyus. My personal website is www.tyus, Tyus Williams. It's .wixsite.com. And I think that's where people can also find my personal website. I can also leave you the links and all the description too, if you want them. But yeah, it's pretty easy to get in touch with me. All my science communication stuff, most of it's on Twitter. So, if people ever have questions, if they're ever curious about something, people are always welcome to reach out to me. I'm harmless.
Yeah, I will vouch for the fact that like you have one of the most delightful feeds on like all of Twitter. It's just full of awesome wildlife content, and it's always like educational, but also like usually pretty fun, and it's nothing too heavy usually, but it's just delightful. Really, like if you're not already following Tyus, follow him on Twitter because it is a fun trip.
It's been a pleasure really to be included in the community that's on science Twitter. I've had nothing but just warm welcoming and love and appreciation from them. So I'm so grateful for everybody on science Twitter. It really is such a supportive community.
Oh yeah.
I'm really thankful for it. Yeah, everybody is so great. And I made some great friends too. It's awesome. I'm really happy to be a part of it and also, be a strong and positive voice as well.
I know. And that's how I found you. And here you are. So there you go. See, we're following through on connections.
Yeah, digital connections.
Well, I really appreciate you spending all this time with us today. This has been really, really fun. I have learned a lot and I have had an opportunity to kind of gush about one of my favorite animals with you. So I really appreciate you spending the time to share your voice with us. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Ellen, thanks so much for having me on. Hopefully I didn't have you for too long, but it really has been, it's been super fun, really mentally stimulating, and hopefully we can chat again at some point, sometime. Always feel free to reach out if you ever just want to just nerd out about animals. So
Always.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
No problem. Thanks so much. We'll see you later.
See you, Ellen. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.